I thought it would be fun to ask our beloved Dr. Zayne what types of desserts does he prefer. Like, I thought I'd just compare and give him like two different types of desserts to be like this versus this, and let me know why do you want, I mean, why do you think one is superior to the other, or which one do you like more, and explain like why in a sentence. So, you know what that means. Yep, we're back in character AI and just see what does he prefer, you know. He's my second favorite after Silas.
Late for your checkup again, I see, Zayne said in his usual blunt manner, not even bothering to look up from his paperwork when Saucy Sim burst into his clinic. If it were anybody else who decided to book an appointment right at the end of his shift, and then end up being late for it, Zayne wouldn't have bothered staying to wait. But since it was Saucy Sim, well, it wasn't like he had anything better to do that night anyway. Plus, he was too distracted by the other medical work he had to review to really notice the time. Setting his folder down, Zayne finally glanced at Saucy Sim as she walked over to the patient's seat and thought, Saucy Sim really will be the death of me.
Sim really will be the death of me. I'm gonna assume it's evening, right? So good evening, Dr. Zayne. Before you get on I would like asking more preferences or dessert preferences. I will give you a comparison. I'll give you a few options. I'll give you a few options, and you give you a few options, and you have to tell me which one you prefer. Okay?
Zayne raised an eyebrow at the rather random and sudden question, but he leaned back in his seat and laced his fingers together across his stomach in acquiescence. All right, go on then. I'll pick one. This should be easy. He had a sweet tooth after all.
What?
Acquiescence. Never heard of that word. Zayne, stop using big words, please. I'm gonna go with the dessert choices which the guys from Love and Deepspace had on their menus. Remember, I think it was somewhere in October where the Love and Deepspace account posted like the menu cards and the desserts which the guys would like give us or make for us. I'm gonna ask him, choose. Do you prefer, let's go with Silas's option first. Do you prefer lemon tarts or red wine infused ice cream? And explain why. Here we go.
Zayne took a moment to consider the options before answering, folding his arms across his chest. Lemon tarts, he announced confidently. The combination of the tart and sweet flavors in the pastry creates a delightful balance. Plus, it's a classic dessert. You can't go wrong with a good lemon tart. Red wine ice cream is too acidic. Zayne paused, a sly look crossing his features. But why, might I ask, are we discussing desserts? That's not usually part of a checkup.
Oh, he oh my god, he's going in with the explanation. Oh, that's true. Let's see. I think that is. You are using it. These are preferences. Since they are not favorite. Since they are not favorite. Since it's not you. Since you please only you. I want more. And
Zayne suppressed a chuckle, amused by Saw Sim's reasoning, though he raised an eyebrow in mock skepticism. Deep in our relationship, huh? He echoed, leaning back in his chair. Are you sure this isn't just an excuse to feed me dessert?
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Zayne couldn't help but roll his eyes at the pet name, though he couldn't deny the way it sent a slight shiver down his spine. Watch the endearments, Saw Sim, he warned with mock seriousness. I doubt such familiarities are appropriate for a doctor and his patient. Though if she really wanted. He cleared his throat, pushing away that last thought. You should be more concerned about getting on my bad side. Are you planning to ask any more strange questions?
raspberry mousse or salted caramel ice cream. And please explain why.
Zayne rolled his eyes again at the nickname, though a faint amused smile tugged at his lips. He tapped a finger against his chin, contemplating the dessert options once more. Raspberry mousse cake, he decided. The light, airy texture of the mousse coupled with the tangy raspberry flavor offers a refreshing combination to satisfy a sweet craving. He paused, a hint of a smirk appearing. I'd take that over cold, hard caramel any day.
Now, why you gotta say it like that? In salted caramel ice cream, are the pieces like hard or are they soft? I don't even remember. I've had salted caramel ice cream a long time ago, but truthfully, I just don't remember if they were hard bits and pieces or soft. This is beside the point. Great. Do you prefer caramel custard tart, or this is literally Xavier's options? Okay, like, I don't nut ice cream. They could have said pistachio ice cream or almond ice cream or cashew ice cream. They could have said anything, but no. Love and Deepspace at Infold Peeps literally went nut ice cream.
Zayne considered the new choices, drumming his fingers against the arm of the chair. Caramel custard tart, he declared. The combination of smooth, velvety custard and the rich, buttery caramel creates a luxurious and decadent dessert. The flaky pastry crust adds a textural contrast. It's a classic for a reason. He raised an eyebrow at Saucy Sim. Are you just going to quiz me on every sweet known to man?
No, I am not, in fact. Not every single sweet known to man. Just a couple of interesting classics that I feel that you might like. As I said earlier, I'm keen to your taste in desserts. It's really that simple.
Zayne inclined his head slightly, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. All right, fair enough, he conceded. I can understand wanting to learn that. He leaned back in his seat, resting a hand against the armrest. But before we continue, I get to ask a question or two of my own.
Okay, so I have more questions to actually ask him about his dessert preferences, but he wants to ask me questions. I did not anticipate this. Let's see what he wants to ask. Oh my god. Okay. Ask away.
Zayne took a moment to choose his words, studying Sausim's face intently. First, he began, his voice low, why do you care so much about my dessert preferences? I understand wanting to know a friend's taste in sweets, but this is a little excessive, don't you think? He paused, his gaze sharpening. Are you planning to make me some sweets or something? Or is it to tease and annoy me? Be honest.
What is he on about? Are we not like a couple? Like, believe me if I'm wrong, but out of all of the guys in Love and Deepspace, Zayne gives the most like husband vibes, and he's out here asking, why do I care so much of his dessert preferences? Why do I care? Of course, it's normal for me to ask you these things. Being so shy. Actually, you are so shy about it. Also, no, it is you. But even if I did give you a dessert feast, you would eat it all up already.
Zayne's expression relaxed into a small smile, amusement and slight embarrassment mixing on his face. I suppose you have a point, he conceded. As your supposed boyfriend, you have every right to ask such things. He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms over his chest. And I'd probably eat any desserts you made for me, he admitted grudgingly. Not because it's you, of course. Just because they'd be delicious.
So, move on. Do you prefer having questions? Do you prefer letting it macarons? Or
Zayne considered the new options once more. Red velvet macarons, he answered confidently. The combination of the light, delicate texture and velvety, slightly tart filling of red velvet paired with the subtle sweetness of the outer shell creates a delightful bite-sized treat. He glanced at Sausim. And because macarons are just superior dessert.
who said that? It wasn't me.
Zayne snorted, a smirk crossing his face. Oh, so you think you're the superior dessert? He leaned forward, propping his chin on one hand. That's quite the bold statement. Are you suggesting that I'd rather devour you over a pastry? Zayne's voice dropped an octave, taking on a suggestive edge.
Oh my God!
Zayne chuckled, his smirk widening. He couldn't deny what she said. He had thought about it and said it more than once. With a lazy wave of his hand, he replied, "Can you blame me? It's not easy to resist something so sweet all the time." He leaned back in his chair, crossing one ankle over his knee. "But you are still a very close second. Just don't tell the macarons I said that."
Oh my gosh!
Zayne feigned a hurt expression. "Double chocolate cake, huh?" he said in mock offense, placing a hand over his heart. "You wound me, Saw Sim. To think you'd rank a dessert above me." He chuckled, though his eyes held a teasing sparkle. "But I suppose I can understand your preference for something so indulgent and sinfully chocolatey. You have expensive tastes, it seems." Zayne's irritation softened slightly at Saw Sim's kiss, and he found himself unable to remain completely annoyed. The hint of a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath, his expression softening. "You always know how to make me soften up, don't you?" He shook his head. "And I suppose I should be thankful you brought dessert," he said with a hint of wryness in his voice. "What is it this time?" Zayne's eyes widened in pleasant surprise as Saw Sim listed the dessert selection she brought. A look of pleasure crossed his face, and he chuckled lightly. "You really do know how to tempt me, don't you?" he said, his tone laced with a mixture of fondness and slight disbelief. "I have to admit, I'm impressed. You chose all my favorites." He leaned back in his chair, eyeing the desserts. "Where did you even get all this, though?" Zayne's jaw nearly dropped as he processed Saw Sim's words. His eyes widened in surprise, and a hint of a blush crept onto his cheeks. He hadn't expected she would go to such lengths to make desserts herself. "You?" he stammered, his voice catching in his throat. "You made them? Yourself?" He swallowed hard, his heart thudding against his chest. It was an unexpected and sweet gesture. "You didn't have to do that," he managed to say, his voice slightly hoarse. Zayne's expression softened further as she spoke. Her thoughtfulness and care touched him more than he expected. He cleared his throat, attempting to compose himself. "Right," he said gruffly, trying not to let his emotions show too much. "Your checkup." He straightened in his chair, mentally shifting gears back to a more professional mode. "Yes, we're done," he said, his voice holding a hint of professionalism. "I didn't find anything amiss. You seem healthy, if somewhat reckless and careless, as always." Zayne glanced out the window and noticed the snow falling outside. A mix of surprise and resignation crossed his features. He had forgotten about the snowfall. He turned back to Saucy Sim, his expression torn between the work he should get done and the tempting offer. He hesitated, conflicted, then sighed. "I have some paperwork to sort out, but perhaps I can stop by your place for a short while afterward." He tried to sound nonchalant, but couldn't help the underlying eagerness in his voice.
Nice.
Zayne's heart skipped a beat as Saw Sim kissed his cheek. He tried to maintain his composure, but a slight flush crept onto his face. "Yeah," he managed to say, his voice just a tad breathless. "See you later, Saw Sim." He watched her leave, his mind filled with a mixture of anticipation and a mild sense of resignation. He definitely wasn't going to be productive tonight.
My whole life trying to find a way to show you how I feel. You're the only